And now we have iteration statements, and they are commonly known as loops. So what are loops? They are tools that help us to repeat a statement a certain number of times. So you have a statement and you want to repeatedly run it to process certain things. So when we use an example, you better understand, right? So, and these are basically three. We have the while, the do, and the for loops. So first look at the while loop. What is a while loop? So this is the format for it. You have while, and then you put a condition in parenthesis and then a statement. So this literally means that while the expression in parenthesis, so while this condition, let me use condition instead of expression, then continue to execute the statement. So while this condition is true, continue to execute the statements for as long as is necessary. Well, as far as this condition is true. But as soon as this condition turns false, then stop the code, stop running the statement. Now, a simple countdown to shut off the computer will include a sleep port. Okay, so I'll talk about that later. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and then illustrate with an example. So in this example, we'll be making it count down to the shutting down of a computer. So what I want to do is we want to declare a variable called seconds, and we want to equate that to 10. I'll explain the whole code after we get an output so that you guys will kind of get the intuition behind it. So I've created a variable called seconds and it stores a value of 10 seconds, right? Then the second thing I want to do is to use the while keyword. Then after that, I put the condition that I want to check in parentheses. So while seconds is greater than 0. So we have seconds. So while there's still time, it will be coming down to 0, 10, 9, 8, up to 1. So while this second number of seconds is greater than 0, meaning while there's still time, then what should the computer do? Remember, we are putting this in parentheses because it's going to be a compound statement, right? So while seconds is greater than 0, what should the computer do? I want the computer to output a message to output the number of seconds that are there, that are left, and then to shut down. Then after that, I want to include, whoops, shut down, okay, ENDL, right. And then after that, I want to update the seconds. So seconds will then be equal to seconds minus 1. So the new value of seconds would become 1 less, right? So, and we have looked at some of these updating parameters where we have updating statements where we have it to be equal to seconds is the same thing as seconds plus equal, sorry, minus equal 1, or we can have seconds plus, sorry, minus minus, and it does the same thing, and we can have minus minus. Then after updating it, what do we want to do? Yeah, it would keep running until the condition turns false, and as soon as the condition turns false, then we want to output the message that your PC is shutting down. So basically that's what we want to do, and we'll run this to see. I hope I don't have any errors in here. Right, no errors. So let's see what the output is. Good. So now we have 10 to shut down. Let me use seconds to shut down. We'll run this again, and I'll explain what it does in a bit. So right now we have 10 seconds to shut down, 9 seconds to shut down, 8 seconds to shut down, 7, then up to 1 to shut down. Then after 1, it was your PC shutting down. So what this block of code did was there was a total number of seconds. So if we had put 20 over here, then would start from 20 to shut down, 19, 18. That would take a longer time. Let's say that we just chose 10 seconds. Then after that, we use the keyword while and then with a condition to show that if this condition is true, so while the seconds are counting down to 9, 8, 7, while there is still time, so greater than 0 here means that while the seconds are still there, while there is still seconds remaining, right? While there is still time remaining, then you should output this message. The number of seconds left and then with this one, seconds to shut down. So after that, we come down here and then update the seconds. So the first time this happened, it seconds was equal to 10. Then the program checked, is seconds 10 greater than 0? Yes, 10 is greater than 0. So I would run this code. Then it ran this line, 10 seconds to shut down. Then after printing the 10 seconds to shut down, the next step is to update the seconds variable to seconds minus 1, and that will be 10 minus 1. So seconds then became 9. So the value of seconds here over here then became 9. And then after that, it returned to the top of the line of the loop. It did not come here, it returned to the top. Then seconds was 9 at this stage, right? So when seconds was 9, it came again and checked 9 greater than 0, and the statement is true. 9 is greater than 0. Then it came to this line, see out, 9 seconds to shut down. That's why we have this line over here. Then after outputting the 9 seconds to shut down, it came down again and updated the parameter. So the seconds was 9, so 9 minus 1, which is 8. And then it then updated it to this one again. Whoops, let me scroll up. Right, and it then updated it to the seconds again. And it did not come down to line 124. It did not come down here because the condition was still true. So it went up there and seconds was 8, 8 greater than 0. Then it did that until the seconds was 1. And when it checked 1, it did that and then it printed 1 seconds to shut down. And then 1 minus 1 will be 0. So seconds then became 0. And then it checked 0 greater than 0, and 0 is not greater than 0. So since this condition became false, then the entire code did not run, and then it jumped out of the while loop. It jumped out of these curly brackets to the next line following the while loop, and then it ran that code since the condition was false. So it then printed your PC is shutting down. So basically that's what it does, right? And we can use other formats for this updating statement, minus minus, and we run this and the same output. So there are 4 ways that you can update this parameter. Now you should know that if you don't update this parameter, right? So let me just go ahead and comment out this. If you don't update this parameter, what will happen is, let me run this and you see what will happen. And we can see that it never stops. It keeps printing 10 seconds to shut down, 10 seconds to shut down, and all of that. So I'll just stop it over here by interrupting it. And now let's see what happened to this block of code. Now 10 was seconds over here was 10, right? Good. Then it checked while 10 is greater than 0, and this is true because 10 is greater than 0, so this block of code will run. So it then came down and printed 10 seconds to shut down. After printing that first line over here, assuming this is the first line, after printing this first line, it did not update the parameter. There was no statement to update it, so seconds was still equal to 10. So it came up again and checked 10 greater than 0, yes. Then it ran this code, 10 seconds to shut down. It did not update and it went up again, yes, 10 seconds greater than 0. Then it ran this code. So it was continuously running the same code because the condition was not updated. So if you don't update it, is going to be an infinite loop. So you should update it in a way that the condition will finally become false so that it can jump out of the while loop to run this code. So then that's it for the while loop, and then we want to move on to the next section so that we want to get a real feel of ground. Right, so you can see that the moment we run this, we get, so let me just uncomment this line. The moment we run this, we get a very quick output. We don't really get it to say 10, 9, 8, a kind of real live second countdown, right? So but what we can do is we can use a sleep for um we can use sleep for, it's another statement keyword that we can use to get this real feel, and we'll look at that later, but not in the while loop, right? So you can also change this to the number of seconds you want if you want to wait for a minute before. So let's put in 60 and we run this. So we started from 60 seconds, 59, 58, 48, up till 1, right? So I hope you get the intuition behind it. So the next thing we want to look at is the do while loop, right? So let's quickly comment this out. And we have, so do while loop, do statement while condition. So right. So this is another form that is similar to the while loop, right? The only difference is that it executes a statement before it checks for the condition. So this is the format. Do the statement. So print out, do whatever statement that you put here. It might be a print statement or something else. So it executes that statement before checking for the status of the condition, whether true or false, right? Now let's illustrate this with an example, right? So there was a snippet here I grabbed from the C++ website. It's a really good example, and I would like us to use that one. So I just copy it and then paste it so that we explain it from there. And I'll paste it over here. Right, so what this piece of code basically does is it creates a string called, let's use, if we use a string, then that is a keyword, so we can't use string. So let's just leave it as such. So string, the name of the string is str, and then after that we use the do keyword, and then it must be followed by a statement as the format here. So do keyword then followed by a statement, and this is a compound statement in the curly brackets. Note that. So what was in the compound statement is the first line, enter text. Then we get we get the text that the user would enter, and then we want to print out you entered this text. We want to output the text that the user entered, and then with a new line. Then after the new line, we want to kind of keep checking. So after the new line, it will check while the string you entered is not equal to goodbye, then this do statement would keep running. So while whatever we've entered is not equal to goodbye, then this piece of code will keep running. So let's run this, and then we kind of would get an intuition from there. So now the line appeared, enter text, and I'm going to enter hello, enter. You entered hello, enter text, I enter hi. You entered hello, enter text, I enter hey. You entered hey, enter text. Okay, so I'll enter goodbye. Now let me enter it with a capital. You entered goodbye. So I'll then enter the correct one. And then you entered goodbye and the code ended. Right. So would see how this worked out in the background. Now, this statement, this block of code is similar to the while loop, but the only difference is that you get to enter a data, right? It gives the opportunity to enter a data. Then after that, you want to apply the condition later on the data that was entered. In the while loop, you don't get to check any condition on any initial input. But with the do loop, it allows you to at least run the code once so that you can get a piece of data that you can check if it is what you want or not. So that's basically the difference between the two. And the do while loop is mostly always preferred over the while loop. Right, so let's just go over this piece of code to see what it does. Now, it picks out, this is a string that would enter. We know how to create a string and to get user input and to assign it to the string. So what these lines do is to create a variable called string and then ask the user for input and assign it to the string. Now the do statement does this, it executes this code, right? And after executing this code, you enter a value and it's stored in the string. Now, after that, the while statement checks whatever input that you entered. So while whatever you inputted is not equal to goodbye, if it's not equal to goodbye, then this entire code will keep running until whatever you entered is equal to goodbye. So in a case that is equal to goodbye, then the code stops. But when it stops, we want to output the message. Let's say kind of pass. So you have successfully logged in. Right, just like that. And then you want to end the line over there. So let's run this again to see. But before that, let me close this and then rerun it. And now we have this text going to run enter text. So this do is currently running. So enter text, I enter hey, and it comes to the next line. It gets whatever I entered and put it in a string, and it printed you entered whatever I entered. So you entered hey, and then it checked, is hey equal to goodbye? No, hey is not equal. So it returned here and then printed out the enter text again. I enter hello, and it picks hello again, and then checks to see if it's equal to goodbye, and it's not equal. So it goes back again to run, and I enter hi, and it goes back to run to check to see if it's equal. It's not, and it keeps running and running and running and running and running and running until I finally get to enter something that is equal to goodbye. So let's enter the real goodbye. Enter good, and we can see you entered goodbye. You have successfully logged in. Right. So until we enter what the while loop, until we satisfy this command, until this while becomes true, we don't get to proceed. So that is the do while loop, right? So we can even input, we can modify this one by adding you, and so enter text and then see out, enter your name, right? Like that, with a semicolon. And we want to get the line in case your name is long, and then cn, and we want to assign it to a variable called name, right? And before we assign it to any such variable, we have to create it called a string name so that we can assign it over there, right? So after assigning it to name, you entered this. So we want to print out first name, then with a comma. This is just going to be a character, comma, right? So name, comma, you entered this, right? Then after you enter the right keyword, then you have successfully logged in, logged in. So we can print with a name. So we can say name with a comma. I think the comma would be more. So we run this to see what is going to happen. Enter text, and I enter hey, and then enter your name. Let's just enter comprehensive tutorial. Run it. Comprehensive tutorial, you entered hey. So we have to enter again hey and our name again. In this case, it did not work. So let's just use goodbye. So I would enter my name comprehensive in this case, right? And so comprehensive, you entered goodbye. Comprehensive, you have successfully logged in, right? In order to check the repetitive printing of entering of the name, we can cut this entire line of code and then put it over here so that we just get to run it once. So after we run it once, we don't get to run it again. Let me undo this and copy just these two lines of code. So I'll copy them and then paste over here, right? I think I should have cut them instead, right? So this line will just run once and then we get to get into the loop. So let's run this again and then we see what happens. So enter your name, comprehensive tutorial. We run it, enter text. We say hey, we run it. Comprehensive tutorial, you entered hey, enter text. So we enter hello, comprehensive tutorial. So you see that in this case, we're not entering our name severally because it's out of the loop, right? So we just enter goodbye and we run it and we see comprehensive tutorial, you have entered goodbye. Comprehensive tutorial, you have successfully logged in, right? Another modification we can make is we can say the enter text after it runs this code name, you entered this. So we want to execute, let's just say enter your keyword, or you can just leave it as text. But what I thought was after the first entry, we can output the message you entered wrongly after the first entry or after any other false entry. We output the message you entered wrongly. In that case, we can use the if to check certain conditions and then output this. But at this stage, I'll just leave the do while, and later on we can make more complex conditionals to check statements.